2025 has been absolutely insane for indie games, where it seems like every other day I'm seeing announcements of games selling 100k, 400k or even 1 million plus copies, representing a maturing of the space and even more dreams being fulfilled. So here's looking at some of the most significant releases this year, beginning with R.E.P., the only game during Devolver's summer showcase for good reason, since this is roguelite perfection, combining Breakout with Vampire Survivors. There are a ton of playable characters and ball upgrades, and some insanely overpowered synergies to decimate enemies, overloading your dopamine receptors, and is one of my favourite games of the year. The Prison Escape RPG Back to the Dawn released out of early access with a huge update that added a new playable character with a complete 20+ hour campaign, effectively doubling the size of the game. Play as Thomas the Fox, a wrongly imprisoned journalist, or Bob the Panther, an undercover agent pursuing his own mission. Both of them end up in the maximum security facility and must navigate life behind bars to plan their escape, forge alliances, play the factions against one another, and uncover secrets buried deep within the prison walls. Expect a mix of stealth, puzzle, and exploration as you learn how the prison operates, with multiple endings providing plenty of replay value, and is the closest thing to a prison break game that we have had in years. This video is brought to you by Stellar Trader, a single-player space economy simulation title set in a galaxy hundreds of years after humanity spread among the stars, starting off in command of a modest freighter with grander ambitions. You buy and upgrade modules, crew, and systems as you grow your ship into a colossal trade vessel capable of long-range jumps, taking on even more cargo to buy low and sell high, navigate planetary economies by exploiting shortages and engaging in black market opportunities, or you could stabilize entire systems by managing supply chains and logistics, build orbital stations above uncolonized planets, create your own space station, establish trade networks, and shape the development of your sector of space to expand your influence. There are hostile pirates and space anomalies that you need to deal with, so make sure your fleet and bases are equipped appropriately, with a grander strategy layer as you use diplomacy to deal with various factions. There will also be unique characters, personal storylines, as well as ancient ruins to explore and strange puzzles to solve, being more than just an economic simulation, so if interested, you can wishlist the game on Steam. A title that went viral is No, I'm Not a Human, a creepy horror title with elements similar to Papers, Please. Set in a world where daylight has turned deadly, you have to stay in the house when the sun is out, but nightfall brings strangers to your door, combining simulation-style mechanics with survival dread. Each evening, a knock echoes at your door as strangers seek refuge in your home. Some are ordinary humans, but the others are visitors, horrifying monsters who mimic human appearance but have much more sinister intentions. During the day, you interrogate your guests, probe their behavior, and assess clues to decide who deserves sanctuary and who has to be killed, and by night, decide on who must be locked out or get to come in. Fail to spot a visitor and someone inside dies, but wrongly judge and executing a human means that you need to live with the guilt and dark consequences. As such, your home is both a fortress and a prison, which is a curious duality, with the game having a stark, stylized art direction that leaves a lingering impression. One of the most striking indie titles of early 2025 is FlyKnight, which launched in January, and is a first-person dungeon crawler that channels the intensity of King's Field in a world where the wings of bugs have been stolen by the malevolent witch Luna Moth, and you must stop her. Explore handcrafted dungeons using a variety of weapons from swords, spears, maces, or even bow and arrows, all while managing stamina and targeting enemy limbs for brutal dismemberments to gain the strategic advantage. Instead of the usual XP or souls system, the only advancement comes through the gear you discover and your own tactical mastery, so every encounter is a learning experience. There are also moments of respite, such as fishing, which can give you buffs, along with hidden paths and powerful equipment to discover. The aesthetic is quite retro and low poly, almost PS1 looking, with intentionally low frame rate animations as well, looking unique and is worth a... I came across this clip of CloverPit on social media, and it basically tells you everything you need to know about this game, being a gambling slot machine symbol builder variant of the roguelite deck builder, instantly getting hype the moment it was revealed, which has translated to big sales numbers upon release. You are trapped in a hellish debt loop, where you have to spin a demonic slot machine in an attempt to pay off your debt, otherwise you will fall into the abyss below. Pull the lever, rack up coins, pick charms and modifiers that skew the odds, and unlock wild synergies across 150 plus items, using these to attain massive scores Balatro style, which, obviously, from the footage, can be very satisfying and once again fires on all your dopamine receptors. Runs escalate in tension over time as your debt grows larger after every round, but hopefully you will get your build and synergies in place to break the game. This has been described as the demonic love child of Balatro and Buckshot Roulette, borrowing the visual style of the latter, and is representative of the numbers go up kind of roguelite design, which is very popular right now. I'm not sure what's happening over at publisher Hooded Horse, but they've firmly established themselves as the new powerhouse for strategy game fans, and Nine Kings proves exactly why. This is a fast-paced auto-battler roguelite strategy game where you expand your tiny kingdom, conquer rival monarchs, and fight to become the ultimate king of kings. Each run revolves around clever drafting and tight grid-based combat, where you choose which cards to play, constructing buildings, summoning troops, and casting spells to outsmart incoming threats. Every victory lets you steal cards from defeated kings, adding new structures, units, and magic to your growing deck, creating absurdly broken synergies that make each run wildly different. The challenge keeps scaling up with random invasions and chaotic events constantly forcing you to adapt your strategy, and is already one of the most addictive strategy games of the year. R.E.P.O. There Yet was revealed just before the Steam Next Festival in October and immediately rocketed into the top 150 most wishlisted games on Steam, and upon release, attained an insane amount of success, selling more than 1 million copies within a few short days. This is a chaotic co-op road trip adventure where up to 4 players take control of a barely functioning RV, trying to survive the harsh backcountry while making their way towards Route 65 and ultimately back home. Players operate different systems, one handles steering, another works the winches, and someone keeps an eye on repairs or supplies, so communication and timing are key. The RV itself constantly teeters on the edge of disaster as you scavenge for resources like burgers, fuel, and medicine, all while dragging your vehicle over cliffs, through mud, and across collapsed bridges. Between legs of the journey, you can repair, upgrade, and prepare for the next stretch, although each run does throw in random events, environmental hazards, and escalating dangers that will push your teamwork to its breaking point. It's messy, hilarious, and tense in equal measure, clearly inspired by games like Peak, and is easily one of the best co-op experiences of the year. I thought 2025 would be the year of the Metroidvania with good reason, but before we get into that, Ender Magnolia Bloom in the Mist deserves the spotlight. Serving as a direct sequel to Ender Lily's Quietus of the Night, this haunting follow-up places you in the role of Lilac, and a tuner wandering through corrupted lands in search of lost memories while cleansing the tainted homunculi that plague the world. Rather than fighting directly, Lilac channels purified homunculi to battle for her, many of them former bosses that you have defeated, creating a beautiful mix of summoning and exploration that feels distinct even within this genre. The tone is somber yet mesmerizing, drenched in melancholic music and painterly backdrops that shift from decrepit laboratories and flooded ruins to grand academies and sprawling industrial wastelands. New traversal powers like flight, hovering, and other aerial maneuvers expands how you explore and fight, tying into the game's emotional weight and smooth pacing. It's an evolution of everything Ender Lilies did right, and while personally I do lean towards the first entry since it felt fresher at the time, this is still an excellent title that is for fans of the genre. Before the roguelite symbol builder was a thing, the other major roguelite trend was that of the auto-battler, with backpack battles being a subset of that in the inventory management space. You shop for items ranging from swords, potions, eggs, and more, drag them into your bag, then rotate and place them, with their position relative to other items being important since that triggers various synergies and effects. Compete in asynchronous multiplayer, where every enemy that you face was actually created by another real human player at some point in time, as the two heroes duke it out to see who is superior. You have to decide on which items to keep, juggling space, rarity, item size and synergies, looking simple but hides quite the amount of complexity. Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon stands as one of the most impressive RPGs of the year, transforming Arthurian legend into a dark, twisted vision of decay and despair. You awaken in a dying land, bound to the fractured soul of King Arthur, and must gather the scattered remnants of his essence to bring back the light to a realm consumed by plague and madness. The game unfolds across a vast open world drenched in perpetual autumn, where every decision carries weight and the consequences ripple through factions, quests, and narrative threads. You forge your own path by creating your own custom hero, mastering a wide mix of melee, ranged, and magical disciplines, while supplementing your journey with supporting skills like alchemy, cooking, fishing, and crafting. When night falls, the land becomes warped by the weirdness, a haunting, ever-shifting force that twists the environment and unleashes horrors from the darkness. The result is an immersive world that evokes the feeling of Oblivion or Skyrim, but draped in a heavy, grim-dark tone that makes every step feel dangerous and uncertain. With hundreds of side objectives and branching storylines shaped by your choices, it delivers that rare blend of freedom, atmosphere, and consequence that defines a true open-world RPG experience. One of the most remarkable success stories in modern gaming is that of Crate Entertainment, the studio born from the ashes of Iron Law Entertainment, the team behind Titan Quest. After making their own version in Grim Dawn, they took a bold turn towards something completely different with Farthest Frontier, a survival city builder that first launched in early access in 2022 and is now officially released in full. The premise is simple but relentless: lead a small band of settlers to the edge of the known world and carve out a new home on the frontier, where every season, storm, and decision could mean survival or ruin. You start with a wagon and a handful of villagers, clearing forests, gathering resources, and securing clean water before the first harsh winter sets in. What follows is an incredibly intricate city building loop balancing food production, crafting, trade, and population growth. The farming system is particularly impressive, requiring careful crop rotation and soil fertility management while your villagers hunt, fish, mine, and forge to keep the settlement thriving. As the town expands, raiders and wildlife grow bolder, forcing you to fortify your defenses, arm your guards, and build watchtowers to keep your people safe. It's a beautifully grounded take on the survival city builder, one that evokes Banished in its unforgiving realism, but is a little bit more fleshed out and will go down as one of the best games in this genre. Soulstone Survivors is one of the best Vampire Survivors style games, already impressing while in early access, with the 1.0 release solidifying its place among the greats, having a ton of content to blast your way through. It's a fast-paced bullet heaven action roguelite where you take on the role of a void hunter, fighting endless hordes of enemies and gathering soul stones to reach unimaginable power. Each run is about building synergies, mixing and matching active and passive skills from hundreds of unlockable abilities to create completely busted builds that melt everything on screen. The combat is punchy, full of flashing numbers and constant upgrades, and every kill feeds into a rhythm of destruction that is just so compelling. Massive bosses known as Titans adds even more tension, demanding quick thinking and reaction beyond dealing with regular enemies. Craft and upgrade your weapons for even more power, with meta progression between runs letting you unlock new characters and enhance various traits. It's endlessly replayable, incredibly satisfying, and hits that perfect dopamine gameplay loop of mowing down thousands of enemies while watching your power skyrocket, which does still have its appeal. Dinkum also released out of early access and similarly had a tremendous amount of attention even while in it, and is one of the most relaxing and unexpectedly charming farming sims out there. set in a rugged, sun-baked version of the Australian outback. It captures the distinct vibe of the Australian bush, from kangaroos and wombats wandering through the fields to the red soil and wide open skies that define its landscape. The goal is to build not just a home, but a thriving town, attracting visitors and settlers who bring new opportunities and personalities to your town. Gather resources by farming, mining, fishing, hunting, and foraging, then craft tools, furniture, and decorations to shape your dream settlement. The world is split into distinct biomes, from the dry bush to swamps, and even to underground caves, each offering unique resources and challenges. Seasonal changes and weather patterns affect how crops grow and which activities are best at different times of the year, keeping your day-to-day routine fresh. It also supports co-op play, letting friends join in to build, explore, and manage the town together, and leans more towards the cozy, social style of Animal Crossing rather than Stardew Valley, but at its core is still a farming game where honestly, any of these would be awesome if you want a chill game to unwind with after a long day. One of the more recent releases is Escape from Duckov, which recently crossed 2 million copies sold, where I'm sure that it's a play on Escape from Tarkov, but with its own top-down twist. You play as a duck waking up in a surreal war-torn world ruled by other armed birds, scavenging what you can to survive and to carve out your own place in the world. Every mission drops you into hostile zones filled with enemy birds and looting opportunities, where quick decisions and sharp reflexes determine whether you extract out safely with all your loot or waste your time after an unsuccessful run. You scavenge weapons, materials, and blueprints, then return to your underground hideout to craft upgrades, expand facilities, and prepare for the next mission. The weapon customization is surprisingly deep, letting you swap attachments, barrels, and optics to fine-tune your guns exactly how you like it. It has dynamic maps and randomized loot spawns, ensuring that no two missions are ever quite the same. As compared to the hardcore extraction shooter like Tarkov, this is a bit more forgiving since base upgrades and blueprints persist, having an interesting mix of adorable characters but challenging game structure. But it's funny to me that out of all the developers chasing the extraction shooter, the whimsical duck game of all things is the one that hit it big. I love the original Slime Rancher and spent way too much time with the early access version of Slime Rancher 2, which also released out of early access, where you once again step into the boots of Beatrix Lemieux. This time adventuring on the vibrant Rainbow Island, a sprawling new frontier filled with mystery, colour, and of course, new slimes. The core gameplay remains as compelling as ever, where you head out into the wilds with your trusty vac pack, suck up adorable slimes and valuable resources, haul them back to your ranch, and raise them into plot-producing machines. Feeding, crossbreeding, and managing their habitats becomes a delightful balancing act between exploration, deciding which upgrades to get, advancing the story, and getting to new areas. The sequel expands on everything, with lush new biomes, a dynamic weather system, and even improved graphics, with the combination of new and old making this a familiar and comforting but also new and exciting experience. Mega Bonk is the latest hit in the Vampire Survivors-like craze, and it's gone completely off the rails in the best way possible, racking up over 1 million sales and counting. Imagine Vampire Survivors rebuilt in full 3D, spliced with the kinetic movement and aerial freedom of Risk of Rain 2, and then drench that in absurd internet humor. You play as over-the-top characters like a muscle-bound Chad, a skateboarding skeleton, or even a monkey in sunglasses tearing through sprawling arenas filled with endless waves of enemies. Combat is pure chaos, as hundreds of projectiles and enemies fill the screen as you dash, glide, and unleash ever-growing barrages of attacks, stacking upgrades and relics to create an unstoppable build. Every run showers you in rewards, intentionally being visually overwhelming, with new abilities constantly changing your build until it's hard to tell what's even happening, but that's part of the fun. The mix of tongue-in-cheek personality, meme-driven design, and satisfying progression makes this stand out, being fast, ridiculous, and addictive, exactly the kind of game you'll load up for just one more run, but somehow lose your entire evening to it. The flood of survival games inspired by Rust, DayZ, Subnautica, The Forest, and Ark Survival Evolved makes it easy to tune out yet another open-world survival craft game, but Abiotic Factor immediately broke through that noise. It takes the familiar first-person survival crafting formula and transplants it into a brilliantly fresh setting, an underground research facility resembling Black Mesa from Half-Life 1, where you play as a regular scientist who needs to survive after a containment breach. Instead of chopping trees on a deserted island, you are scavenging through offices, laboratories, and testing chambers for scrap, prying open crates, and dismantling furniture for materials. You are not some chosen one or hero character, but instead must rely on your intellect and ingenuity to survive. Craft makeshift weapons, then progress up to laser cannons, using these and improvised traps to fend off interdimensional entities and the heavily armed military types sent to erase all evidence of the disaster. There is a surprising amount of variety to the biomes, from sterile corridors and flooded reactor bays to more alien-looking areas, each holding secrets but also resources to be used in the crafting systems. It also has co-op support, letting you play with friends, and is pretty much survival game perfection. Post-launch, they have announced their roadmap, which has plans up to summer 2026 at least, and I don't see any reason for them not to follow through given the mega success of this game, being the most inventive survival crafting game since Subnautica, proving that even in a crowded genre, originality still wins. Supermarket Simulator is a first-person store management simulation that immerses you in every aspect of running your own supermarket. From floor to checkout, you design and customize shelving, fridges, and freezers, unpacking deliveries, organizing goods in storage rooms, and stocking the aisles so shoppers can find what they need quickly while you monitor real-time market pricing to maximize profits. Man the checkout and scan items, accept cash or card payments, and then intervene when shoplifters or spills threaten to undermine your efficiency. Expansion comes naturally through reinvesting profits to hire staff, purchase equipment, expand your physical store space, and evolve your layout for both functionality and style. While I do blame this game for the absolute deluge of first-person job simulator clones along with TCG Card Shop Simulator, there's something about how they make the mundane fun which might be worth a try. No roundup of 2025's standout indie releases would feel right without Deltarune, the long-awaited follow-up and parallel story to Undertale. After years of anticipation following the free release of Chapters 1 and 2, the commercial launch adds Chapters 3 and 4, continuing Toby Fox's signature blend of heart, humor, and just a dose of the creepy. The story follows three characters on their quest to seal the Dark Fountains, portals that threaten to consume the world, while exploring the fine line between light and dark. Explore the overworld and engage through quirky interactions, talking to characters and solving environmental puzzles. Battles shift into turn-based combat reminiscent of classic JRPGs but with a bullet-dodging twist, which is the same as Undertale but now with multiple characters. Attack, defend, act or show mercy, with choices here rippling across the story and ending. The dynamic between violence and compassion remains central, once again letting players shape their own moral path through pacifist or genocide routes that change tone, dialogue, and outcomes. It's packed with sharp writing, unforgettable characters, and moments that swing from hilarious to gut-wrenching in seconds. While the journey isn't finished yet, with more chapters still to come, the commercial release and success marks it as one of the most significant games of the year. Hades 2 is the direct sequel to one of the most acclaimed roguelites ever made, set long after the events of the first game, where you play as Melinoi, princess of the underworld and sister to Zagreus, wielding sorcery and steel to challenge Kronos, the Titan of Time, who happens to be your grandfather as well. The change in protagonist comes with a shift in the rhythm of combat, since where Zagreus thrives on speed and aggression, Melinoi's style leans heavily on magic and timing instead. The Omega spell's charged abilities creates a more deliberate combat flow, rewarding precision and patience instead of pure reflexes, so you need to learn and anticipate enemy movements in order to most effectively counter-attack. The boon system returns with a refreshed roster of gods, each offering new powers and combinations, while dual boons once again encourage creative builds and experimentation. Beneath that, the meta progression has been vastly expanded, adding layers of upgrades, unlocks, and weapon aspects that make every run feel even more rewarding. Even during early access, it rivaled the content of the original's full release, but the 1.0 version takes things further with additional regions, enemies, and new routes that lets you fight beyond the underworld. It has more content and confidently builds upon everything that made the first game great, and is proof that Supergiant continues to operate in a league of its own. Peak is pretty peak, and the story behind its creation is just as wild as the game, born out of a game jam and later developed through a dream collaboration between Landfall Games and R.E.P.O. It somehow transformed from a quirky prototype into a global phenomenon that has now sold millions of copies. The concept is beautifully simple and very compelling, being a co-op climbing adventure where you and your team of nature scouts attempt to conquer a new, procedurally generated mountain every day. This makes every climb feel fresh, rotating between different biomes from lush jungles to snowy cliffs, each hiding new hazards like crumbling ledges, slippery ice, or sudden storms that threaten to send you tumbling. Use ropes, spikes, and pitons to forge a safe path forward, while stamina management, equipment choices, and teamwork determine how far you'll get before exhaustion sets in. Camping serves as brief moments of rest and recovery, giving you a chance to plan the next leg or to regroup after a disaster. Of course, physics adds to the mayhem, which, combined with the silly looking characters and expressions, as well as voice chat, just makes this a laugh, and in some ways, and I'm using it endearingly, is the origin of friend slop, of games to mess around in while having a good time with friends, and seems to be getting long-term support as well. A lot of people have Claire Obscure Expedition 33 as their pick for Game of the Year, and is a reminder that turn-based RPGs can still capture mainstream attention when executed with style. You lead the Expedition 33 squad on a desperate mission to stop the Paintress, a mythic being who awakens once a year to paint a number, erasing everyone of that age from existence, having one of the coolest setups for a JRPG that I have come across. This takes the essence of classic JRPGs like Final Fantasy and reimagines it through the lens of Belle Epoch-era dark fantasy, resulting in a haunting world created with fate and time being central themes. The turn-based combat has real-time elements, along with some Souls-like influence in presentation and abilities. From parrying and countering enemy attacks, every party member has distinct mechanics that synergize in surprising ways, in which you can only create a party of 3 at any one time, so there are interesting possibilities to experiment with. Of course, there are familiar RPG systems like gear progression and leveling, with beautiful visuals and emotional storytelling as well, really rounding off the package. The one thing about this game, however, is whether it qualifies as indie or not, given the team size, supposed funding, long list of contractors, and a who's who list of voice actors, including Andy Serkis, sitting in that grey area, but it's still impressive that a small team can make a game like this, rivaling the JRPG giants of the world. 2025 might just be the year of friend slop, and if Peak's success impressed you, R.E.P.O takes their chaotic co-op energy to a whole other level. It's a frantic, physics-driven co-op horror extraction game where up to 6 players control clunky maintenance robots tasked with retrieving valuable items from dark, monster-infested facilities. Everything is governed by janky, unpredictable physics, so you'll be lugging around priceless objects ranging from fragile vases to massive pianos through narrow corridors and hallways while unseen horrors stalk your group. Heavy items require multiple players to carry, forcing constant coordination and communication through proximity voice chat, but as soon as a monster shows up, panic erupts, items drop, things break, and the whole mission spirals out of control. Each successful extraction earns you surplus, which can be spent on new gadgets, upgrades, and weapons to help in the next expedition, and is that perfect mix of tension and comedy similar to Phasmophobia and Lethal Company. They literally dropped a new patch as of the day of recording in the Monster update, bringing it to version 0.3.0 and shows no signs of slowing down. Every year, there's that one indie game that appears out of nowhere and completely dominates the conversation, from Balatro to Vampire Survivors to Lethal Company, and in 2025, that honour belongs to Schedule 1. It's an open-world life sim with a criminal twist centered entirely around the business of drugs. You start as a low-level dealer, hustling through the streets of Highland Point, gradually building up to a full-blown empire through production, distribution, and good old-fashioned survival instincts. Travel on foot, skateboard, or drive vehicles between safe houses, labs, and storefronts that you've purchased, hire employees, automate production lines, and manage the flow of cash and chemicals while keeping an eye out for the cops and rival gangs. The crafting system lets you experiment with different formulas and ingredients, often producing strange or comedic results, aided by a stylized cartoony aesthetic that reminds me of Rick and Morty and has nailed the gameplay loop. After what felt like an eternity in development, Hollow Knight Silksong finally released and the internet absolutely lost its mind. I still remember being there on launch day hammering the buy button on Steam, but the demand was so overwhelming that Steam broke, and I was only able to get in hours later, with the game peaking at 587,150 concurrent players on PC, not even considering console numbers, so the most anticipated indie game of all time did deliver on its promise. Originally conceived as an alternate campaign for the first game, it grew far beyond that, evolving into a full-fledged sequel, but one that does feel like post-game content or DLC in terms of challenge. The foundation remains unmistakably Team Cherry, from the razor-sharp combat, labyrinthine level design, and atmospheric storytelling, where Hornet's gameplay style is different from the Knight, more glass cannon as compared to warrior coded, with some very challenging bosses and areas that might make you rage. But like the first game, stick with it and you'll find a masterfully crafted title, and is a reminder why this series sits at the heart of modern indie gaming. Watch this video for more of the best indie games.